Good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Helena Nat. I am the executive director with the Greater New York Chamber of Commerce. And you know what? I'm really excited about this presentation today. The mantra of the Greater New York Chamber, by the way, we represent 30,000 different business and civic leaders, is to grow your business. And a lot of people think it's about networking or it's about connecting. It is. But in addition to that, it's providing the businesses, whether you're an entrepreneur, small, medium sized company, major corporations, information to grow your business. So today, we are welcoming the Workers' Compensation Board. We're really excited about that. Anita, it is great working with you. Thank you for helping me put this presentation together. And we have Walter Peretti. He's the compensation examiner with the Workers' Compensation Board. We have a chat going on. If you have any questions, put it in the chat. We're going to have time afterwards, after the presentation, for Q&A. So definitely put that information in. And I always say this when it comes to our webinars, whether it's the SBA or certification or things like that, don't put personal information. If you have an issue with something, don't put your personal information. We will, we'll set up an email that you can provide that information to the appropriate person. So right now, this is being recorded. It will be on Chamber TV. And I am going to turn it over to Walter. We're really excited about this because there's so much information that needs to get into the businesses and the workers' hands about protecting yourself and your team. And I'm going to turn it over because that's what that says it all in itself.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Helena, for setting this up, and Anita as well. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, the presentation is protecting yourself and your team. Okay, kind of the coverage essentials for businesses and what you need to know. So we'll be reviewing that. And as Helena said, as you have questions, just put them in the chat. We'll have more than enough time at the end, and we'll answer those questions at the end. But if you think of something as I'm going through a slide, it's always a good idea to put that question in ahead of time, and so you don't forget it at the end. So again, we'll just go over the coverage basics, kind of who needs coverage, who doesn't need coverage, the cost of the coverage, unfortunately, the penalties that you could be assessed for not having coverage, how to control your costs, as far as loss prevention, safety, what to do if there's an injury, and then we'll give you some resources when we conclude at the end. Okay. So by way of introduction, what is the Workers' Compensation Board? We were created in 1914 after the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory of 1911, which a lot of immigrant women lost their lives because they're basically locked in doing sweatshop type labor. So the agency of the Workers' Compensation Board was created to oversee workers' compensation, disability benefits, and paid family leave. Part of what we do is we receive reports of injuries and payments. And we also authorize the medical providers to treat workers' compensation injuries in New York State. We have approximately 950 employees with offices and hearing points around New York State. We hold hearings. So if you were ever injured on the job and there was any question as to whether it was compensable, if it actually happened on the job or rose out of the workplace, ultimately you would go in front of a workers' compensation law judge, and that individual would determine whether that claim would be covered by workers' compensation or not. As far as our office goes, we assist businesses with the coverage and compliance issues that they might have. Like we're doing here today, we educate business owners and government personnel on the workers' compensation system. We meet with business associations, chambers of commerce, employer groups, listen to their concerns regarding the system, and we report right to our chairperson, Clarissa Rodriguez. So if we hear a common theme from business owners, we can bring those concerns back to her, and we can look at how we can make the workers' compensation board better to serve the individual needs of businesses throughout New York State. Some of the coverage basics we'll cover. Workers' compensation covers any type of injury, illness, or accident that arises out of employment. So it could be something where you cut your hand, or it could be something where over a long period of time, you work in a factory, you develop some type of lung condition. It's there to provide both medical and wage replacement. So if you had any type of workers' compensation injury, if you injured your back or something, that you're pretty much covered for the life of the claim. So you would never pay, if it's a workers' comp claim, you'd never pay any type of co-payment, lab fee, testing fee, etc. Physical therapy, as long as it was covered under that workers' compensation claim, you'd be covered for the life of that claim. One of the examples I kind of like to use, if you were, in your younger days, you're home from college, you're working landscaping, you injure your back, maybe you get some treatment on it, and then 10 years down the road, it starts acting up on you. That claim would go back to that original landscaping policy that you were covered under, and it would still be covered as long as that ongoing injury was related to that injury you had back when you were working landscaping. Also provides wage replacement. Okay, if you're injured or ill to the point where you cannot work, there is wage replacement for you. And we'll go into those numbers later. And it's like any insurance, it's there to protect both parties. In this case, the employer as well as their employees. Just like your auto insurance, you pay a premium every month. And should somebody, rear end you or bump you in traffic, there's going to be coverage there to protect you. Disability benefits covers any type of off the job accident, injury, or illness. So if you were, home shoveling snow, chopping ice this evening or what have you, and you were injured doing that, you'd be covered. And it's only limited wage replacement. Okay, there's no medical for that. Hopefully that would be picked up by your health insurance. Again, you must be under the care of a physician or a medical professional. You must file the claim within 30 days of becoming disabled. And then it's only $170 per week as far as wage replacement, up to 26 weeks. We also have paid family leave, which came into existence in 2018. And there's 3 instances where you can take it, 3 main instances. You can bond with a new child, whether it's a birth, adoption, or foster care. It's there for also to care for a family member that has a serious health condition and assist when a family member is deployed abroad on active military duty. So who needs coverage in New York State as far as workers' compensation goes? Businesses with employees need coverage. For workers' compensation insurance, it's the first day that you're going to have that employee. It doesn't matter whether that individual is part-time, full-time, seasonal, whether they're a family member or what have you. If you have a business and you're going to hire somebody on February 20th, you would need a policy in place on February 20th. As far as disability and paid family leave, you have 4 weeks after that 30th day of employment. So you almost have a 2-month period for the paid family leave and disability benefits to get that coverage in place. Okay. And how do we define an employee? Essentially, it's anybody that's providing services to a for-profit business can be determined to be an employee of that business. All right. So again, it doesn't have to be, that person does not have to be compensated. If you have a friend that's just helping out in your business, or a family member that watches your store while you get your kids off the bus or something, that individual would be considered an employee, whether they're compensated or not. And then any compensated individual that provides services to a not-for-profit. And there's some limited exceptions, such as clergy or teachers in a 501c3. Who is not required to carry coverage? In all these instances where these individuals are exempt, you can always go out and get a policy. However, there's no requirement that you have one in place. It's basically, do you want to take that risk on yourself? You can't take that risk for other people. But if you're a sole proprietor, you have no employees, and you say, I'm just but I'm an accountant. I just do tax work. I'm in the office. My risk of really getting injured on the job is very low. And should something minor happen to me, I can probably continue to sit at my desk and do tax returns and bookkeeping, etc. You're a sole proprietor, you have no employees, you are exempt from having coverage. Partners in a partnership that have no employees. So if everybody in that partnership, if it's an LLP, etc., it has to be a legitimate partnership. It just can't say, oh, it's just me and this guy. We're quote unquote, partners in this business. It has to be a legal partnership. And then 1 or 2 person-owned corporations that have no employees. And the caveat there is they have to each hold at least one office if it's a two-person corporation. Between the two of them, they have to hold all the offices and own all the shares of stock. Okay, and then an LLC, if the only individuals compensated are members of that LLC, then you would be exempt. Again, these individuals, the sole proprietor, can certainly go out and get a policy if you're plowing snow or you're doing maintenance in a building and you're a sole proprietor. You might want to get that coverage in place because if something happened to you on a job and you didn't have the coverage, obviously there would be no benefits. There'd be no, there'd be no medical and there'd be no indemnity benefits. Can employees waive? We just skip some slides. Okay.
No.
I thought we might have skipped this slide. Can employees waive PFL coverage? It's not optional for most employees. Some part-time or seasonal employees can qualify for a waiver. They can only waive coverage if they regularly work fewer than 20 hours a week and they're not going to work 175 days in a year. So, a little bit less than 6 months there, kind of like the landscaping or seasonal businesses, they may be able to waive it. If they regularly work 20 more hours per week, but won't be in employment with that employer for 26 they can waive that coverage if they meet either one of those requirements. Okay. Disability insurance and paid family leave for sole proprietors. Again, they may voluntarily opt in for the coverage. If they opt in within the first 6 months or 26 weeks of starting their business, there's no waiting period for them to take those benefits. If they opt in after the first 6 months of starting their business or 26 weeks, they would have to wait 2 years to take those benefits. Factors considered when determining, we always get this independent contractor. We're going to say, oh, he's an independent contractor, she's an independent contractor. I pay that person, on a 1099, or I pay them piecemeal or all commission. The fact is, we don't look at how the individual is paid. If they materially participate in the business and are integral to the success of the business, generally for workers' compensation purposes, they're going to be considered to be an employee of that business. Some of the factors we do look at to determine if that individual is an independent contractor: does the hiring business control the time and manner in which the work is to be done? Okay, so are you telling the individual, hey, I need you at this job site, or I need you to show up, work from 8 to 4, 9 to 5, what have you? Does the individual have their own FEIN number, and do they file their own business tax return? Do they maintain a separate business establishment from the hiring business? Okay, on our website, it goes into much more detail, so you can go to that employer section of our website, which is wcb.ny.gov. Click on employers, and it'll give you, it'll give you some more examples. We really look at direction and control when we're trying to determine what an individual is an employee or an independent contractor. Construction workers, we have the Construction Industry Fair Play Act, where basically workers are presumed to be an employee unless they can prove they have their own business. Okay, so if you are a general contractor and you sub out, the framing, the electrical, the HVAC, etc., those individuals can generally be presumed to be independent contractors because they're in a separate business, separate trade. Generally, they're going to show up, when they want. They have their own employees, etc. They should have their own policy in place. And as a general contractor, we would say you want to make sure that any subs that you bring into the job or on the job site, that they have a policy in place and they make you the certificate holder. But again, on the Construction Industry Fair Play Act, you can find more information about that on the Department of Labor's website. Okay, general contractors are liable for all workers' compensation claims of all uninsured subcontractors. That's why we always stress when we give this presentation, whether it's to the building industry, construction professionals, etc., that we recommend that the general contractors have their subcontractors get a policy and make sure they add the general contractor as the certificate holder. And what this means as a certificate holder, if something materially changes with that policy, say the subcontractor doesn't pay his premium, or the insurance carrier cancels them for any number of reasons, as that certificate holder, the general contractor received notification from the carrier that, hey, we canceled Walt Peretti Painting and Papering due to non-payment of premium. So as a general contractor, you can go, you can go to that subcontractor and say, hey, look, I saw your policy was canceled the other day. What's going on here? You need to get that in place. Okay. Cost as far as premium and penalties. Okay. Essentially each job in New York State has a 4-digit classification code that relates to each type of job class. Obviously your construction trades, and more of the manual labor stuff is going to be a lot more expensive. It's how hazardous is your business. Okay. So if you're running a call center, you're going to pay a lower premium than the individual that might have a roofing company or a snow plowing operation or something like that. The rates as far as the premium goes, they're calculated by $100 worth of payroll. So it depends on the size of your payroll, how big your business is, how safely you operate. All right. They just a little bit like your auto insurance, like, are you a good driver? Do you have, a couple speeding tickets, couple accidents, fender benders, DWI, et cetera. So what's your claim history like? And then the carriers will do an audit every year. Well, they'll look at your payroll. And that's a good opportunity for you as a business owner to kind of go over with the insurance carrier, like if those jobs changed a little bit and, they might not be that class code that the carrier was using the year before, might not accurately represent what that individual or those individuals are doing now. That's a good opportunity at that time of audit to really review what that class code is, because that can affect your premium greatly. All right. And then the carrier adds in their administrative costs. So right now in New York State, we have about 240 licensed carriers. So the private insurance market, the Travelers, Hartford, State Farm, et cetera. And there's also the New York State Insurance Fund. And they write about 40% of the market. They will always give you a policy. So if you go to the Travelers and for whatever reason they don't want to give you a policy, you can go to the New York State Insurance Fund. And they will give you a policy for both workers' comp, disability benefits, and or paid family leave. You have to remember that these carriers, they have administrative expenses. So you want to shop around as a business, you want to shop around and see, compare prices. The thing with workers' compensation insurance is it's statutory. So a policy from the Hartford is no different than a policy from the Travelers or this New York State Insurance Fund. The coverage is the same because it's statutory, it's mandated by law. So there's no Cadillac of policies or no cheap, Geico type of say 15% or what have you. So you want to make sure as a business owner you shop around, get the policy that is the least cost or offers you the best customer service or whatever your criteria are. Okay. Also the assessment, which is the part of the premium that the board charges the carriers to run the workers' compensation board. We reduced that. It was a 2.1% decrease from the 2024 assessment rate of 9.2%. So that potential savings of $191 million for businesses across New York State. So our cost to run the board, the workers' compensation board, went down to the carrier. So hopefully they are passing that cost savings on to their policyholders. Disability and paid family leave. For disability insurance, rates are calculated for $100 worth of payroll. As the employer, they may deduct partial contribution. So it's what they can deduct is half of 1% of the employee's wages, which is no more than 60% per week, and the employer will pay the rest of that cost. So that's 60 cents that you hold back if you elect to do so as the employer. That goes to pay a portion of the premium for providing that disability benefits insurance. Paid family leave is paid for entirely by the employee unless the employer does elect to pay for it. But the New York State Department of Financial Services sets that contribution rate. They may deduct a full contribution from the employee. So for the 2025 year, it's 0.388% of their gross wages, which is capped at an annual maximum of $354.53. Workers' compensation is a benefit that is paid for 100% by the employer. You can't charge your employee for the cost of providing that coverage. From time to time, we have businesses that have non-compliance. So if you're a business and you needed coverage and you did not have that coverage in place, there can be a penalty of up to $2,000 for every 10 days of non-compliance, which comes out to If you have up to 5 employees, you can be subject to misdemeanor and a maximum penalty of $5,000. If you have more than 5 employees, it can be a Class E felony, subject to a maximum $50,000 penalty, 1/3 to 4 years in prison. And then misclassification. We talked about those class codes. If you are misrepresenting to your insurance carrier, your insurance agent or broker, what the employees are actually doing, that is the same as being uninsured. So if you're kind of misclassifying that payroll so that you pay a lower premium rate, putting those employees into a class code that has a much lower rate, that's the same as being uninsured. And with all these penalties, a large portion of what our office does on a daily basis is we work with the employers to mitigate these. So if you had a lot of times people go out of compliance for any number of reasons. Maybe they just forgot. Maybe they thought their payroll company was handling it, ADP or Paychex or whatever. I thought they were getting the coverage for me, or my accountant told me I didn't need it, or my attorney told me I didn't need the coverage when I hired my brother or my spouse in my business. So we work with the employers on a daily basis to lower these penalties. Okay, what we do generally is we say go out and get a policy, because you have to come into compliance before we will hear the appeal of the penalty. And then once you have that policy in place, submit a copy of that policy, show us what the premium is, because we're not going to charge you $2,000 for 10 days of non-compliance on it. The annual premium was $1,500. We'll look at the premium amount, adjust that penalty accordingly. Okay. Some of the disability benefits and paid family leave non-compliance penalty, it's 0.5% of the employer's payroll. Employer's payroll during that period of non-compliance can be a misdemeanor, and it can be also fine and imprisonment. Now, the caveat is we've never, to my knowledge, thrown anybody in prison for not having workers' comp or disability benefits insurance, but those are the laws that are on the books. So you want to make sure that you are in compliance, because you want to protect yourself as well as your business, right? If you're a business owner or an officer in a corporation, and that business is found to not have coverage and somebody's injured on the job, you would be personally liable for that claim. And as we talked about, the treatment is for the life of the claim. The indemnity benefits if the individual is unable to work for whatever period of time, whether it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, what have you. As a business owner, if you didn't have coverage or as an officer in a corporation, you would be personally liable, for all those payments. So you don't want to have an uninsured claim on your hands. Another issue would be if you're not compliant, if you don't have coverage, you go on the debarment list. Okay, and that bars you from bidding on any type of public works project or subcontract with the state or any municipal corporation, city, county, etc., for a 1-year period. And if you are found to be without the workers' compensation insurance, you stay on that debarment list for a 1-year period, so you can't get any type of public contract, etc. And the ban is for 5 years for any type of felony conviction related to noncompliance. So say you do have a penalty, all right? What is the appeal process? First of all, you're going to get a letter from us, just kind of a GI letter, a general inquiry letter, just going to say, hey, we noticed that you don't have coverage on file. What's going on? And it could be as simple as, oh, you know what? I just incorporated and I'm the sole owner of the corporation. I don't have any employees, but let us know that. Okay. Or it'd be like, oh, geez, I didn't realize, I got a big job and I hired some people. I didn't know I needed coverage. So as soon as you get any type of letter or correspondence from us, you want to make sure you reach out right away, and appeal that penalty, get that coverage in place, or just let us know that, hey, I didn't have any employees during that time period. Business was slow, so I had to lay some people off. That's why I canceled my policy. And then, we'll handle from our end. There won't be, if you didn't need the coverage, there would not be any penalty associated. But I cannot stress the importance of getting out in front of it, and responding to that first letter that you received from us. Okay. If you want to control your costs, okay, some of the things you can do in terms of safety and loss prevention. Okay, again, make sure that your carrier is using the correct classification code with your employees. All right, follow those claims. Okay, make sure you stay informed, stay in contact with that injured worker, make them feel like they're still part of the business, reach out to them. Maybe they can come back on some type of light duty if they can't come back full time and do their old duties. And make sure you're operating safely. If you notice you're having a lot of trip and falls around your business, take a look around. Are there extension cords laying around? Is the shop floor slippery? That sort of thing. If you're having the same issue over and over, really look at your business and say, okay, why is this happening? Every month, why are we getting this slip and fall claim, et cetera? Okay. You can also form a labor management safety committee. It's a very simple process. You just want to have an equal number from members from the labor side as well as management side. You'd have a committee, a chairperson of that committee, and you'd regularly rotate that individual. And then you'd have a regularly scheduled meeting, whether that's monthly, quarterly, just to go over some of the procedures, how to avoid incidents. Some of the tasks you could go visit. If you have different work sites, you could go to the different work sites. You can review the equipment, as well as the procedures. A lot of times now when you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, they're wearing the back braces, so that they're lifting safely, from their knees and they're not injuring their backs. And you can train any new employees for safety, and safe procedures as far as your business. The New York State Department of Labor also offers an on-site consultation program. The program is free and confidential. They're not going to come in and say, "Oh, geez, look at this. This place is a mess. We're going to fine them for this." It's not that. It's not that type of program. It's there to assist you. It doesn't issue any type of penalties or fines. They're not looking for that. They have OSHA trained staff that will visit your workplace and help mitigate those safety risks. Again, that's a free service offered by the department. They'll do air and noise sampling, site hazard assessments, look for other risks, et cetera. If you're interested in that, you can, reach out to the Department of Labor at 518-457-2238. They also have what's called Code Rule 60, which is a labor, workplace safety and loss prevention incentive program. You can save up to 10% your first year in that program, and then 6% years 2 and 3. It's basically if the business voluntarily establishes a safety, drug, alcohol prevention, or return to work program for their business, and that can be done right through the New York State Department of Labor. You can set that program up, and you can save up to 10% that first year. If you have a safety, drug, alcohol prevention, return to work programs, they must be evaluated by certified specialists. And the Department of Labor has a list of those specialists, or you can just ask your insurance carrier or your insurance agent about Code Rule 60, and they should be able to point you in the right direction. If you want more information on the program, go to the Department of Labor website. They'll have that listing of certified specialists. They have some model programs that you can take a look at, as well as additional resources and information on Code Rule 60. Okay. Return to work. All right. It's very important. There's a lot of studies and a lot of data out there that shows the longer an individual is out of work, the less likely they are to return. So you want to make sure that you stay in touch with that individual, make them feel part of the company or the business. Because the research shows the longer the employees are out, the less likely they are to come back. So just 50% of injured employees return to work after a 6-month absence, and only 1% after a 2-year absence. So if you have an individual that's injured at work, and if they can't return to their old job, if they have some restrictions due to that workplace injury, talk to them, find out what those restrictions are. Maybe they can come back and do a different job, whether even on a part-time basis, so they feel part of the business, and they're not just sitting at home, getting depressed and it stinks. If you can find a place for them within your organization to come back, they can still collect part of their benefits, part of those indemnity benefits, while they're working, part-time or what have you. So they're not going to lose their benefits, in terms of indemnity if they do come back to work. They can help, from that individual when they return from a work-related injury. And then medical care is a lifetime benefit. So even after that individual returns to work, if they have to go out for, physical therapy or what have you, or additional testing or surgery, they can still receive that benefit even if they're back to work full time, unless they signed a legal settlement that says otherwise. Okay. So what to do if there is an injury, all right? Right away, you want to make sure that that worker, that individual gets the necessary medical treatment, all right? Whether that's first aid or they have to go to an urgent care, et cetera. You're going to record the details of the incident, the what, where, when, and how. So like what did that individual injured? You know, where's the injury occur? When did it occur? How did it occur? You want to notify your insurance carrier immediately, okay? If the injury or illness caused or will cause lost time behind any time behind the day of that incident. The form that you would file is a C3. It's basically a claim form. The worker files that, okay, with the board, and they must notify their employer in writing no more than 30 days after the actual incident. So even if somebody goes home, you know, they kind of wrench their back, you know, work that day and then starts really acting up once they get home, they want to notify their employer no later than 30 days after that injury occurs that they're going to seek treatment. Can an employer challenge a claim? So yes, an employer, if you're the employer, you can challenge a claim. Say, if you know, or if you think the injury did not occur while the individual was at work, they came in limping, you know, Monday morning or something, and then, you know, then they filed a claim that they hurt their leg at work. Or, you know, it happened, maybe that employer left or that employee left your employment and they filed a claim, you know, back in February, but they left the job the first of the year. So they didn't work there when that claim occurred, or you didn't think they worked there when that claim occurred. Or if the claim is fraudulent, okay, maybe they came to work drunk or under the influence of alcohol or drugs or something like that. If you think there's some fraud involved in the claim and the individual's not really hurt, you would talk to your insurance carrier about that. Can you continue paying wages after an employee is injured? Many employers do continue to pay the employee's wages following work-related injury or illness. And the employer can seek reimbursement for those payments out of any subsequent compensation award. So if that individual is out and, you know, they were injured and they were out a few weeks, and to do the nice thing, you kept paying that individual, and then they started collecting comp, you could go back and, you know, you would be reimbursed for those wages out of that compensation award. So the employee cannot collect both their regular salary and then that indemnity benefit. But the employer must make a claim for reimbursement prior to the award of that compensation. Yeah. When the injured worker does return to work, you want to let your carrier know immediately, you know, on that the date that they return to work. Workers performing limited or light duty with a reduced salary, they still may qualify for some of those wage replacement benefits. If they're returning to their old wage or their old job or their old wage, they're no longer entitled to workers' compensation indemnity benefits. Okay. And if they return to work without disclosing it, they could face fraud charges. So if they, you know, don't let the carrier know that they're back at work and they're still collecting that indemnity benefit and they're getting their regular paycheck. And again, medically necessary treatment for work-related injury or illness is a lifetime benefit. So even after that individual comes back to work, you know, they still have lifetime benefits in terms of medical costs. Some of the resources we have as an employer, you're going to get, when you get that policy in place, you're going to get a form called C-105. It's a posting notice. It comes from your carrier, and it basically tells the employees, you put it in your break room or lunchroom, or another conspicuous place where employees will be able to see it. Basically tells that, you know, you have the required insurance, and it will tell you tell that individual what to do, or the employees what to do should they be injured on the job. Okay. And an employee under Section 120 of the Workers' Compensation Law, employee cannot be discriminated against for filing a claim. You can only terminate an employee for a valid business reason, whether it's economic reasons, absence from work, inability to do the job, poor job performance, etc. So you can't punish them, require them for filing a claim. And an employee is eligible for benefits regardless of their citizenship and or their immigration status. If you were injured on 9/11, or you know somebody that's injured on 9/11, you may be eligible for no-cost health care and or financial compensation from the federal government, whether you're a first responder, worker, resident, or a student in the areas impacted by those attacks on September 11th. You're just going to want to visit ny.gov/September 11th to find out more information. The board is building a new business information system called Onboard. Right on our website, there's a section dedicated to that. You can walk through the registration process, view tutorials, and see these presentations. Basically, there's a lot of online self-service features, access to real-time claim status, e-forms, electronic forms, if you need anything like the C3 for that first report of injury, et cetera, that can all be found on the Onboard portion of our website. And like many other businesses, the board has a Twitter or X account, Facebook, all our social media channels, Instagram, YouTube. If you go to our YouTube channel, this presentation is available on a recorded basis, as well as other presentations. If you want to learn more about the claim process, our advocate for injured workers does a presentation on claims and what to do if you're injured on the job. We also have LinkedIn. And if you wanted to sign up to get notifications from us via email, you can go to our website. You can sign up for email notifications. And on that, we're not going to bombard your email box. So you can choose whether you want the employer notifications or several different subject areas that you can choose from as far as information that we would send you periodically via email. And our office, which is at the Advocate for Business office, our advocate, Anthony Tomaselli, we're a small office, only 4 or 5 of us in the office. But if you call our helpline anytime, from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., somebody will pick up the phone. You'll get a live person. We can help you with your issue. You can always email us, advocatebusiness@wcb.ny.gov. And there's a lot of information on the website regarding businesses and what our office does. Right on our portion of the website, which is wcb.ny.gov/advocate for business. So that pretty much wraps up our presentation for this morning, but we're more than happy to answer any questions you might have or give you any information.
Thank you so much, Walter and Anita. There's a question right now. If a worker's place a claim and it's a work injury, but the worker lies about employer way of the amount being paid, can the employer report that?
Yeah. So what happens when an injured worker, if they're gonna miss time, the employer will get a form from their insurance carrier, and they'll have to fill out. I think it's the last 12 weeks of wages for that individual, so the last 3 months, because that's what they base the claim on. So I didn't dive into it, but the indemnity benefit, it's 2/3 of the average weekly wage in New York State, and that's reset every July 1. So if you're injured on the job to the point where you can't work, you could collect 2/3 of the average, up to 2/3 of the average weekly wage. So right now, the average weekly wage in New York State, I think, is about $1,780 a week, so about $85,000 or $88,000 a year. So if you're making more than that, you'd collect 2/3 of that. If you're making less than that, you'd collect 2/3 of your wage. But yes, to answer that question, the employer would send in the payroll information for the injured worker, and then the insurance company would make payment based on that information. Yes.
Right, and as long as you're putting you have payroll records, you have the verification for that. So just make sure that that's
Yeah,
the
whether you do
checks
your
and
own payroll,
balances
you
of
have
that.
ADP do it, it should be easy for you to get that information, what that individual made the last, I think it's 12 weeks they go back.
Yeah. Someone asked, as a single as a single person LLC, if you are injured while traveling to or from a contracted job, would you be covered under their workers' compensation?
Generally traveling to and from work, no. You're not covered. Again, it would come from a administrative law judge, a workers' compensation law judge would make the final determination. If you were carrying some files or transporting files, yeah, you'd probably be covered if you're injured on the job. But if you're commuting to and from work, like when you get in your car and you drive to work and you get in a fender bender, you slip, walking from your parking garage into your place of work, generally that's not covered. With an LLC, if the individual is a sole member of that LLC, I think they said, the question was, they, you know, if they were an independent contractor, they wouldn't be covered under that contractor's policy anyway. So whether they were coming or going, it wouldn't have any bearing on that.
Do you send information out of companies that offer workers' compensation? Do you send a
On our
list
web,
of who
the
people are
Department of
asking?
Financial Service, we're working on something similar to that. That's a really good question. But Department of Services is the one that, you know, I don't want to say certifies, that's not the right term, but they regulate the carriers. So if a carrier wants to write workers' compensation, disability benefits, or paid family leave in New York State, they go to DFS, Department of Financial Services. There's a listing of carriers on their website. And again, there's about 240 in New York State, in addition to the New York State Insurance Fund. So they can go to that website, or they can do a simple Google search, you know, and they should be
The
able to
chamber
find it.
has a lot of members that do that also, if you
Sure.
want a referral.
Yeah,
Just
if you can work with generally a broker, an agent, you know, doesn't cost you anything as a business owner to go out and, you know, they can shop the policies for you, bring you back the quotes, and then, you know, you can go over with them and see which one you want to go, what company you want to go with.
Definitely. Is there any minimum hours of work that are needed to get coverage if a worker is injured at work? For instance, a worker with only 6 to 8 hours per week.
No, I mean, so if you're hiring somebody, and we get this a lot, it's a really good question. Again, you need that coverage for workers' compensation the first day that individual starts working. And, you know, whether they're, you know, 2, 3 hours a day, or, you know, just every Friday afternoon, or whatever it might be. There's no floor as to that. If they're working there an hour a week or whatever, you need coverage, and that individual would be covered and entitled to benefits.
Sounds good. I think we answered most of it because one was like 3 questions, part of one. Wait. Please send me copy. Okay, if you need list of companies, just email me. Helene, you guys all have my email address, and I'll get you some. You can get an online quote from New York State. Okay. Any other questions? I'm looking at 2 chats here.
You can
Everyone's
also,
asking for
in
list
terms
of
of carriers,
people.
like I know with the New York State Insurance Fund, you can go right online and get a quote. You know, you have to put in your business, the payroll, you know, what type of business you are, and generally they'll give you a quote, right? You can do the whole process. NYSIF, you know,
Wait, I'll put that in the chat. Go to www.nys.
NYSIF, New York State Insurance Fund, NYSIF is Frank.
.gov.
And they .com.
Okay. I
And
just
they
put
can,
that in.
you know, you can get a quote, and I'm sure you can do that probably through the Travelers or Hartford.
Someone wanted to know, what do you suggest to get a WC policy when starting a business, New York or private company?
We can't make a recommendation. Again, it's all the same. You know, it's not like you're comparing, a Mercedes to a Hyundai or what have you. So we can't really, we can't make a recommendation for the smaller businesses. A lot of times, the private carriers don't want to write the small business. So, you know, their option is a New York State Insurance Fund, and they do a very good job at what they do. The only insurances they sell are workers' comp, disability, and paid family leave. So you can't go to them and get a liability policy, or, you know, an E&O policy, or, you know, car insurance or what have you. But I would just suggest just shop around, just do a simple Google search, or if you work with an insurance professional, an agent or broker, have that individual, you know, get you some quotes, and do the legwork for you, because, or just go online and, you know, try to get some online quotes.
Good question here. If I have workers in New York and New Jersey, should I get different policies?
So, yeah, that is a really good question. So if you have employees traveling into New York State, or even if you're a New Jersey-based company, you have people working remotely in New York, you need a New York policy. So if they're injured in New York, they're entitled to New York benefits. New York has very good workers' compensation benefits. Every state is different. So there's 50 different, states, so there's 50 different benefits. But if you have individuals that are working in New York, even if they're, traveling into New York one day a week for work, you would need a New York policy. There's two ways you can do it. So if you're a New Jersey-based business and you don't have a New York policy, you just have New Jersey, and all of a sudden you picked up a job, or you're going to hire a remote worker that lives in New York State. If your carrier is licensed to write in New York State, your New Jersey carrier, it's as simple as going to them and tell them you're going to have employees in New York. That carrier will add New York in Section 3A of their New Jersey policy, which basically is, them saying that, hey, we'll pay New York benefits should this individual or should any of our employees get hurt in New York. Or if your New Jersey carrier is not licensed to write in New York, you would have to go out and get a separate New York policy. But yeah, you would need policies to cover both states. I can't speak to what you would need in New Jersey so much, but yeah, if you have employees in New York, you definitely need a New York policy.
Yeah, you just answered that. So, okay. Any other questions? What if the company is based in New York but hires union employees out of state?
So the New York employees would have to be covered.
Yeah, either way.
New York, by the New York policy. So if it's a New York-based company, they're going to have coverage. The thing about workers' comp too is once you have coverage for your business, if you tell them, hey, I'm going to have, this many employees, these are my job classification codes. If you get some huge job and you have to hire 10 more people, you don't need to call your insurance carrier like you do with a health insurance and say, oh, I need 4 more family plans and 2 individual plans or what have you. Everybody that works for that business, that tax ID number, FEIN number that's issuing the payroll is covered. So as you add or subtract employees, you don't have to call your carrier. Like when they do that audit, they'll look at the payroll from the previous year and say, oh, geez, you had a really good year. You said you were going to have $200,000 worth of payroll. You had, $290,000 worth of payroll. So they're going to obviously adjust your premium upwards to account for that additional payroll. But yeah, so if they hired out-of-state union employees, they'd have the New York coverage because they have employees in New York. But then if those union employees were working in Ohio or Connecticut or Massachusetts, they would have to check with those individual states to see what those requirements are.
Follow up. So what defines the company to hire? Where they work or where they reside or where the business operates?
So it's where they work. So if they're, if you reside in New York, if you reside in New York, but you work in New Jersey all the time, they wouldn't necessarily need coverage. Okay. If they don't have New York based employees, it's not, you have to think like, where are they working? If they're that's where they can be injured, right? If they're taking the subway back to New York to, at the end of their workday, they're not going to be covered. They're not covered if, because they're not working in New York, they're just commuting or what have you. So it's basically where they're working. And a big thing we've had lately, Helena, is the remote workforce. So like we'll get companies that call and say, oh, I had an employee, I didn't realize he or she was working in New York State. I need to get a policy. I just got a penalty from you guys. So even if that employee is working remotely out of their living room or, their office in their home or what have you, local coffee shop, if they're in New York State, you need to have New York coverage, even if, your business is based in Massachusetts or New Jersey or what have you.
Good answer. Good answer. Thank you so much. Thank you both for your time. If there are any questions, do you want to put up the last slide with all the social media and where to contact?
Yeah, we'll put that up. And you can always email us if you think of something later this afternoon or what have you. Or if an issue, like Anita said, like if something like, oh geez, I did get a letter from them, I do have a penalty letter sitting in my inbox, I have to call them. Just give us a call or send us an email and, we'll be happy to assist you. And we're always reachable. You send us an email any time of day or night and we'll get back to you, the next business day if it's outside of office hours.
Love it. Thank you so much. This was so informative. Anita, you want to say anything? Because I think I was cutting you off.
Yeah, no, thank you, everybody, for coming. But I'm going to send you the PDF of this slideshow so you can share it with everybody as well, and all your members. So they will have this slideshow if they want to go back through it, reread it, if they they need our contact info, they'll be able to have it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time, both of you, for your time. This is so informative. And like, you know, it is interesting. Walter said when at the introduction, how important it is that you hear the concerns of businesses and that you bring it back to you know, your constituents. And that's the goal of this, to find out what your concerns are and to make sure that as a small business, it's hard to operate. And that's what we're here to do, is to connect the organizations to provide that. And Workers' Compensation Board, thank you so much for this. This was so informative. It will be on Chamber TV this afternoon. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to them. Email me if you have any questions, and we will, again, like I said, this is being recorded. Thank you again, Anita. Thank you again, Walter, for your time. And hopefully we'll be doing this again in probably in the fall to get the updates.
Yeah, great. We look forward to it.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.